welcome to the Ghost of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 179 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 35 of A Storm of Swords, that's Catelyn 4.
And if today is your first time with us, I'm going to tell you how this is going to go. We're going to chat about the chapter, try not to spoil any future plot points for you, and hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
And there are 178 episodes you could listen to before, which won't spoil this episode. We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Beautiful day outside today.
Wouldn't know. I just work like a dog.
That's just sad.
I work like a coal miner.
You only came up, it was dark out by the time you emerged. How are you?
I'm all right. I saw, just as we got to the point where it says in the notes, provide some witty banter, that you stopped and you looked at what I'd written and you were like, oh, I'm intrigued.
I am.
So it's
not the normal info that you would have in witty banter.
No. I read something the other day, it kind of blew my mind. It was, so the show Sex and the City had a reboot called...
Something. I remember it existed.
And then there were 3 or something like that. No, that's not right. It's something, whatever the reboot was. But it was the 3 women who came back to the show. One of the original 4 dropped out, but 3 came back.
Kim Cattrall dropped out, I believe.
Correct. Well done. So it was the average age of the 3 actresses versus the average age of the 3 actresses in the first season of Golden Girls.
Oh, no.
They were the same.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that an amazing stat?
That is fascinating.
Uh-huh.
That's really, that was one of Stacy's favorite shows growing up. She and her grandmother used to watch it every Saturday night or whatever it was on growing up.
Stacy's grandmother was rather cool that she liked Sex and the City.
That's not the one I meant.
You see what I did there?
I
think I knew what you really meant.
I think you might have.
And I mean, not to just dominate the witty banter, but
your banter's always the wittiest anyway. So
well, it's I go looking for it. That's the thing. I mean, I spend my entire week like a magpie seeking out shiny things to bring to this. But Rob, my brother, had a terrific story about a guest staying at the farm. So if you remember, for those who've forgotten or didn't know, my brother Rob runs a self-catering apartment complex in Normandy in France. And that's it. But the geography of the place is, it's off wow, these are minor roads. So you take a minor road out of the main town to the little town, then you take a really minor road across the top of where he lives, and then you take this very minor driveway down to his place. And that driveway, just as you turn onto the driveway, it crosses the railway lines. Okay. And there's a gate, comes up, closes if a train's coming, kind of thing. Well, an older guest was leaving to go back to the ferry back to England, and it was very foggy the morning that he left, and he drove up the driveway. And well, you can already guess what's going to happen, right?
I have a hunch.
Mm-hmm. So my brother's just sort of like tootling around doing whatever it is he does during the day, and the passenger from this car, who is himself in his 70s, comes hurtling down the hill, and he says, "We've got stuck." And so my brother's like, uh-oh. So he runs up the hill. And he said it's really foggy. I mean, you can't see much at all. But he turns right, as the car would have turned right, on the train tracks. And sure enough, 20 feet down the train tracks, there's the car.
That's what I thought.
Stuck on the train tracks with all 4 wheels in the air.
Oh, no.
The driver is still sitting in the car, trying to get the thing to move, just spinning the wheels like a loon. So my brother opens the door and pulls him out and sits him down away from the tracks, then runs back to the to the crossing where there's a phone for emergencies. And he gets on the phone and he says, stop the train, stop the train. My brother's, because the thing was, the ferry is at 7:30, I think it is. And he knows what time the train comes. These people were leaving at 6:55 to catch the ferry. And the train comes at 7 o'clock.
Oh, no.
My brother said, they're ready for this. That's what these phone boxes are there for. So, when someone calls from one, they tell the trains to stop. My brother said that the headlight of the train was shining on him when it came to a stop.
It takes like a mile or something for a train to stop, I've heard.
They're smaller sort of passenger trains. So probably not that. They're not like a big American train. It's probably like just 2 cars kind of thing. So it probably could stop relatively quickly. But he said it was, he was looking at the driver and the light was shining on him. And he was
wow, that's intense. Yeah. Oh, goodness. That could have been much less witty banter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Had things not worked out the way they did. Wow.
And my brother, pretty cool in the thing, when it came to it, because he just did exactly the right thing. Ran up there, got the guy safe, then ran back and stopped the train,
Yeah, I thought about that too. I was thinking, his training is as a fireman, right?
Exactly.
So,
he was a firefighter for 10 years. He doesn't like to talk about it unless there are ladies in the room, in which case...
I can't imagine why.
In which case, it'll definitely come up in conversation.
Well, I'm glad he was there. If those two had not decided to alert someone back at the farm, that could have been a terrible situation.
Yeah. Not good for the train driver. But
no, all around that would have been terrible. Well, you're still wearing your work clothes, and it is nearing 8 p.m., so you've had a long day.
It's been hectic. It's Mardi Gras.
Oh, it's right.
Yeah. And
yes.
So what did I make the family for dinner?
Something Cajun? French?
No. Pancakes.
Oh, I've never been to Mardi Gras. That's something they eat at...
It's not really the American Mardi Gras. In the UK, we call Mardi Gras Pancake Tuesday. That's what we call it.
I did not know that.
It's because tomorrow is the beginning of Lent, and Lent you give up some food that you normally eat. So the day before, you used up your flour and milk and eggs, so you eat pancakes, you see.
Okay.
So that's what I made for dinner. And I make the thin crepe style pancakes, not the fat American style.
That make Americans fat by eating.
Well, I was referring to the pancakes. If you've got a guilty conscience, I understand.
I just came from the beach last weekend, 2 weekends ago now, where I had quite a stack of pancakes one morning. So,
Did you count them? How many?
I think it was 4 or 5, something like that. It was nice.
I went to a restaurant in upstate New York once where the restaurant was actually it was a maple syrup place. They had a maple. Oh. Do you call that an orchard or a forest? And
a maple forest, maybe.
Yeah. And during the tapping season, which I guess is around March, something like that, the restaurant was open, and you paid for a jar of maple syrup, and you could have as many pancakes as you wanted to go with your jar of maple syrup.
Wow, that's a cool business model.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was great. I ate 13.
13? Were they like silver dollar pancakes, or are we talking full size?
They were more like the flat crepe style ones.
Okay.
But, it was about a day and a half before I wanted to eat again.
Well, normally I'm a Belgian waffle guy over a pancake guy. But this, when we were down at the beach there a couple weekends ago, I just felt pancakes on the mind, I guess.
So let's get down to business. How did we leave Catelyn Stark? Last we saw of Cat, she was witnessing the unfolding calamity of the Northern Alliance caused by her freeing Jaime and by her son Robb marrying Jane Westerling. The latest rift is Rickard Karstark's murder of Willem Lannister and Tyon Frey, which inevitably if you completely forget about the concept of taking the black, leads to Robb's execution of Lord Karstark and his conspirators. The rest of the Karstarks desert the cause, still hell-bent on regaining Jaime. Cat also shared some gentle words with her new queen, Jane. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
Okay. Well, Lord Hoster Tully, Lord of Riverrun and Lord Paramount of the Trident, has died. Sad, but not unexpected. I mean, let's face it, he's hung around in his deathbed for like the last 2.5 books or so.
True that.
But he's laid to rest in full regalia in a boat packed with kindling that is released into the rivers. The traditional 7 pallbearers include Roslin Frey, sent by his father, Lord Walder, apparently to bury the hatchet.
Hoster's heir, now Lord Edmure Tully, fires a flaming arrow into the river just behind the receding boat, then just in front of the receding boat, and then really close to it. His uncle Brynden Blackfish spares everyone the spectacle with a shot that hits the mark just before the boat slips out of range. Cat hopes that Bran and Rickon are waiting for Hoster on the other side of the Vale, an image of some solace to her.
Edmure is not in the best of spirits. Missing his shot is going to be an itch that can never be scratched. Cat recalls his weeping and drinking of the night before. She lied and told him that Hoster's final word was Edmure. In truth, it was Tansy, the subject of his final day's obsession. Robb and Jane comfort Cat, who thinks of Lysa's continued absence with some anger.
Robb is solicitous to Roslin Frey, who quotes his father as saying he was young once too. Cat is silently sceptical, but it certainly hints at forgiveness and a possible détente. After dutifully speaking with all attending lords and ladies, Robb asks his mother to walk with him. She's pleased. He's been kind enough to her in her disgrace, but had rarely sought her out. She understands. Jane and her young brothers make Robb smile. Cat is just a reminder of his sorrows.
Cat worries for Robb. She knows that the Freys aren't won back yet. To add to his woes, the news from Duskendale is terrible. 1/3 of my foot soldiers lost for Duskendale, Robb questions. Robb intends to exchange Martin Lannister for Robert Glover. Kevin Lannister would be grateful to get his surviving son home. Garbett Glover is in despair over his brother. But Robb can't help notice that he keeps winning battles but losing the war. Winterfell and Moat Cailin in the hands of the Ironborn, his father, grandfather, 2 of his brothers, and possibly his sister all dead.
But now he shares the news that has been weighing yet further on him. Sansa has been wed to Tyrion Lannister. Both Cat and Robb blame Tyrion and think of opportunities that they had to rid themselves of him. Cat cannot understand why they would marry Sansa to him, but Robb points out that she's now the heir to Winterfell. Cat cannot even countenance losing Robb too. She asks him to think about bending the knee, but he cannot, ever.
Cat pushes that the Lannisters don't need the North. He could have peace and security. Robb wonders if she freed Jaime for peace. She doesn't deny it, but Robb sees that as a betrayal of Ned. Cat gets mad, and they part ways. At supper later, Roslin Frey announces that Theon has burned Winterfell. The Walders have been taken to the Dreadfort, and many from Winterfell were killed, including Sir Roderick. Apparently the survivors were rescued by Bolton's bastard, who'd been reported dead. No word of Theon.
The Freys will accept the new marriage proposal, Edmure to marry a Roslin Frey, but Robb must come to the twins and apologise face to face. Robb is relieved and agrees. Edmure would like to meet his future bride, but Walder Rivers, Walder Frey's eldest bastard, is scornful. The Freys seem keen on expediting things. They have some plausible reasons, but the whole thing is a little fishy. The Frey delegation is excused. Edmure vents, but eventually agrees. We have a wedding to look forward to.
Oh, another wedding.
Yes, that'll be nice.
I will say, yeah, sure. Weddings are always nice, aren't they?
They are. Well, and this one is a little bit more willing. I mean, he's willing to marry a Frey. I get why he would like to meet her first, but, you know.
Right, yes.
I mean, the Freys all look alike. You know what they're going to look like.
You've seen one, you've seen them all.
Exactly. See Walder here? Just like that.
You see Walder and the other Walder? I will say, Edmure put himself in quite the pickle. Hung over, trying to hit a moving target from distance with a fire arrow. That's easier said than done.
Yes, well, at least for Edmure, anyway. Poor Edmure.
Maybe, I know. He always just bears the brunt of George Martin's jokes, you know?
Yeah. It's It's a useful chapter though, because it kind of gives us a necessary recap on where things stand. Where Cat and company get up to speed on the information that we've been piecing together. So things that they learned are the sack of Winterfell, which is news to them, but of course it's kind of old news for us. That happened some time ago for us.
Yeah.
The defeat at Duskendale, which is that's a little bit more recent, and of course Sansa's marriage, which that has to be a blow for them. And I don't know. I mean, I think they both kind of like Tyrion a little bit.
Yeah, Cat thinks about their trek through the Mountains of the Moon and how she should have let Lysa push him out the moon door, but she conveniently forgot about him saving her life.
Yeah.
That was at the moment an inconvenient fact that did not fit her mood.
But I think Robb had already left Winterfell when Tyrion came back to Winterfell, right? Because it was Bran that...
Robb was there.
Oh, it was Robb. That's right. It was a Bran chapter.
Yes,
but Robb did... So, and he treated him frostily, but then he was kind of impressed that he came with the design for the saddle for Bran. So I think both of them have a bit of a grudging respect for Tyrion. But
compared to the rest of the Lannisters, for sure.
True. I mean, that's a low bar that he clears. But they also know what Sansa's like, and they know that this must be absolutely hellish for Sansa.
Right. Yes. That is worth mentioning. They know Sansa, and they know what she built up in her mind for her future husband, and Tyrion does not fit any of the criteria.
Checks very few of those boxes.
Right. But I will say, the chapter starts with Lothar Frey being the last minute sub in for the pallbearers, the 7 pallbearers.
Right.
He subs in for Sir Desmond Grell, and I just thought it's got to be a little bit tough on Sir Desmond being booted by Robb for Lothar Frey for this rather prestigious honor, because he's been in service of Lord Hoster since Desmond was at a really young age. He rose to become Master at Arms of Riverrun, Castellan of Riverrun when Edmure left for the Battle of the Fords. And, he thought everyone else, all the other 6 pallbearers were either his king and Robb or bannermen, except for Mark Piper, who's the son of one of Hoster's bannermen. And then Desmond Grell, and he must have felt really special. Like, this is a great way for me to pay tribute to a man that I clearly respected for a long time. And then at the last minute, Robb was like, sorry, man, you can watch from the battlements like Cat.
But yeah, I mean, he was 8th on the list. I mean, that's still pretty prestigious.
And I totally get why Robb did it.
And I think Desmond Grell would too.
Yes. I think so. Yes, it was certainly a wise move by Robb to put Lothar Frey in.
Yes, I mean, the last thing you need to do now is anything that could be perceived as a slight of the Freys. You've got to tread extremely carefully, and that one was an easy one.
Someone should tell Edmure about that. What you just said. Yes.
Poor Edmure. I mean. So as well as the recaps, though, there are some kind of strategic key points of this chapter. There is the idea that the Freys could be won back around, which is so critical. I mean, not only are they a huge force, I mean, just the family is a huge force.
Yeah, Cat refers to them in this chapter.
You kind of missed my joke there. I was saying that just the Freys themselves constitute a huge... That's a third of your foot right there.
It is, right. Yeah, Cat refers to them as the Tully's most... formidable bannerman,
right? And the strategic stronghold of the twins. I mean, that's the other part of it,
right?
It does seem that the key to this is Edmure marrying the Frey daughter without too much fuss. And I keep thinking Edmure must know where he stands in everyone's graces at the moment. He needs to not complain in front of the Freys, who are prickly and prone to take offense. And you're saying, what does she look like? Could I have a picture?
Shouldn't I get to meet her first?
Weigh her up.
Yes. Can we court for a moon's turn.
Right. I mean, she's young. I think she's only like 16 or something. Possibly pretty within the realms of Freyness. And I would guess if I'm a 16-year-old girl living at the Twins in amongst what I always sort of like imagine to be like a can of worms of siblings and aunts and uncles and nephews and nieces, she might be grateful to get away and might be thrilled to come and live in Riverrun.
Right, because first of all, amongst so much family, it would be hard to find someone to settle down and marry that isn't also related to you.
Right.
Like 9 out of every 10 boys she comes across is a relative in some way.
If his last name isn't Frey, it's Rivers because he's a Frey.
So yes, she might be just looking forward to getting out and meeting some people that aren't related to her.
So Edmure's got to count his blessings and stop his bleeding, basically, because it's not helping the situation. Edmure sees an insult in the nature of the two people that were sent. One is Lothar Frey, who was born crippled. And so he's a smart thinker. You can clearly see throughout this chapter that Lothar's a diplomat and someone who you can have an intelligent discussion with. But he is crippled, and so he's not, the most elegant and, sort of charismatic and charming. And the other one is the eldest bastard of Lord Walder Frey, whose name is Walder Rivers. So a cripple and a bastard, that combination, it sounds like you could take offence at that. But you just got to get over it, Edmure. Again, stop whining.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And Cat is right when she says it was a clear message sent by Walder. I'm sure it was. I'm sure Walder planned it carefully who he wanted to send.
But my counter-argument to that is, if you were in good terms with the Freys, you wouldn't even notice if those were the two that were sent.
Possibly, yeah.
Because Lothar is smart and can convey a message and can have a negotiation. And Walder is a feared soldier.
Yeah. I found that bit about Walder being a formidable warrior kind of surprising, because when I think of the Freys, I think of kind of underwhelming, self-serving, having overinflated opinions of themselves and their abilities. Mostly because, one, Cleos Frey, Sir Cleos Frey, he can't be the most accomplished knight. Somehow he won his knighthood. I'm not exactly sure. I have a hunch there are so many knights in the Freys that, a knight can make a knight. So Lord Walder just has the next Frey in line, knight the next Frey behind them.
You're not getting anything in my will, so...
You'll get a knighthood from your brother. But I thought maybe it's because he is natural born and had to work harder to earn actual knighthood.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. As a Frey, you don't have to do anything to get Lord Walder's notice, except you do because there's so many of you. But as a Rivers, I mean, you're so far down the totem pole that they've got to strive, they've got to struggle to make themselves known, and he managed it, through martial feats. Yeah.
Now I will say that Lothar is Lord Walder's 14th trueborn child.
Right.
So, there was a lot of men ahead of him that could have been chosen.
I mean, you might have skipped over the ones who couldn't read a message, who couldn't...
Right. And that's an important distinction, because one thing Kat tells us is that Lothar has been Lord Walder's steward for the past 12 years.
Right.
Dozen years, I think is thereabouts. So, clearly you can see it in his ability to speak with courtesy and, all the proper things at the proper time, because he's a steward. He's probably used to doing that.
And to genuinely represent his father's wishes. I mean, that's the other thing, If you send some hothead with a sword, he might not be able to do that.
Right.
The third and fourth son's probably fighting for that. The crippled son spent his time thinking and listening and talking,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right. I will say Walder Rivers, remember last chapter I mentioned House Charlton, and I said we're going to meet Walder Rivers very soon.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is the Walder Rivers I was referring to.
His mother was a Charlton?
Walder Rivers is married to a Charlton.
Oh.
That I mentioned in last week's background info.
Okay, question for you. So, Mrs. Rivers, does she take Rivers or does she stick with Charlton?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
Tricky.
It is. Oh, he's also the one that sent Chet from the Night's Watch to the Wall for killing Bessa. Remember that?
Yeah. I kind of like him. And I also kind of like the Charltons too, you know?
One of the issues with the Tullys as Lord Paramounts of the Trident is that they're just not on their own strong enough, possibly. Their bannermen don't necessarily fear repercussions of offending them, at least not bannermen as strong as the Freys.
But that would be true of any region where the second family is as strong as the Freys. That would always be true, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess if you look at the Karstarks and what the beef they had with the Starks.
But I don't think there was a real tension between them. I think there was just... It's more possibly the better example is the Tyrells and the Florence.
Okay.
There's always going to be tension between the two biggest houses, you know, but
right.
As long as you do what you're told, eventually.
Yeah. I just wonder if the Tullys were a stronger house, if the Freys would be more deferential to them.
Yeah, probably. But I'll also say the Freys stuck to their side of this bargain. It was the Starks that betrayed the bargain here. Well,
yes.
And the Freys have come back to the negotiating table to try and get a new bargain in place.
Yeah. It makes sense.
We dislike them by reputation, but they've done nothing wrong here.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. Yes, you're right. Absolutely. But so one thing Kat mentions is that Robb handles the Frey snub better than Edmure. Like you said, Edmure was mad about the Frey delegation. He voiced his displeasure to Kat. And, you know, he is now officially Lord Tully. So are his emotions a concern? We saw Edmure try and defend every blade of grass in the Riverlands after the Mountain attacked the three random towns, and Tywin predicted that Edmure was going to do that, which is why he picked three random towns, so that Edmure would spread his forces too thin, trying to protect everyone. And, then that led to Tywin attacking with two concentrated forces and easily routing the Tully forces. So, might Edmure's youthful wear his emotions on his sleeve situation become an issue?
But he's not that youthful, right? I mean, he's quite a bit older than Robb, for instance.
That he is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's tricky. And also, the kicker for him, and I do sort of sympathise with this, he's finally attained the thing he was promised all his life. You're the heir to Riverrun. You'll be Lord Paramount of the Trident. You'd think once you've achieved that you would be able to marry who the heck you want. And the same moment that you achieved that, your ability to choose your own wife was taken from you.
Right. You finally achieved.
It's just a kicker,
It is.
Finally, I can do whatever I want, and the first thing I have to do is what everybody wants me to do.
one thing I don't want to do.
Exactly.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
So, Cat lies to Edmure and tells him that Hoster's final words were Edmure, but in actual fact they were Tansy. And just as a reminder, Tansy was this thought that kept on going through Hoster's mind as he slipped into death about what we think he was talking about, forcing Lysa to take Tansy tea, which causes miscarriage of babies.
Right.
This is what Cat inferred from these ramblings. So
yes,
it's kind of sad for Hoster that he went to his death still sort of obviously racked with guilt over this decision and what he made Lysa do.
Yeah. Maybe if we ever meet up with Lysa again, we'll get additional info or maybe clarification on this. We spent a lot of time on this. Cat, we've had multiple Cat chapters where this Tansy situation has come up. It would be odd for it to die here along with Hoster. But
Cat knows it, right? Or seems to know it, or has figured it out.
Yeah, so. She's deduced that this must be what's happening. But I feel, as we often say, I feel for Edmure here because he took his father's death hard, and one of the things he regretted was I shouldn't have fought the Battle of the Fords. Instead, I should have been here with father in his final days like you, Cat. And it's just one more regret about this battle. There's so much regret after the battle that was initially such a high moment for him. And when it comes down to it, he was just doing what he thought was best.
Right.
And we've talked before about this, about how it should have been on Robb to get instructions to Edmure, not about not fighting the Lannister forces as they traipsed across Edmure's front yard.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you. So, no word yet from Roose Bolton about Jaime or Brienne. Cat estimates that they might be in King's Landing by now, and so conceivably Sansa or Arya could be on the way. That predates learning that Sansa has now married Tyrion Lannister, of course. That would suggest Sansa's not coming back.
Those two thoughts did come in that order, right?
Yeah, exactly.
She thought maybe they're on their way back already, and then she learned, oh no, that's not going to happen. And she knows. She said when she's pleading for Robb to consider bending the knee, the Lannisters will want a captive. Tyrion's never going to let Sansa go, so there's their captive.
Yeah.
So she quickly accepts this fact.
Yeah.
But, about Roose Bolton, there being no word from him about having captured Brienne and Jaime. As Robb's bannerman, it seems he should have sent word to Riverrun about the recovery as soon as he recovered them.
Right. The news of Duskendale shouldn't have got here before the news of Jaime and Brienne.
Right. Now, POVs aren't always completely linear, as we've discovered.
Right.
So maybe this event is prior or very close to the same time that Roose recovered Brienne and Jaime. But otherwise, there definitely should have been a bird or two sent to Riverrun saying, oh, hey, I caught that Kingslayer you were looking for.
And you lost a third of your foot.
But, one thing, Cat thinks I have nothing to share with Robb but grief. And it just made me think that she thinks she's lost at least 2 sons and possibly a daughter, when in reality, all of her kids are alive.
Yeah.
Now, she has lost Ned and her father, and of course that is incredibly painful, but the reality isn't as painful as she believes it to be.
Right, but there's been no word of Arya, and there's literally been word of the death of Rickon and Bran.
Right.
So
yes, it's just a shame that she doesn't get. She's getting all this other news that she hasn't gotten news, such as, oh, all of your children are alive. Maybe not well, but they're alive.
Yeah. So Cat thinks Robb's doing all he can do to be a good king, and for the most part she's right. He's certainly fighting the battles and trying to be honourable and what have you, but marrying the first girl who kissed him, I still think that was unkingly.
Yeah, it is. And another concern I have, and I think it might be due to his youth, is trust. He seems to be a bit too trusting. He trusted Theon, ignoring Cat's plea to send someone else to the Iron Islands, which has had huge ramifications.
True.
He trusted Edmure to read his mind and not fight the retreating Lannister force. He trusts Roose, and he's been disappointed by Roose randomly sending a third of their foot soldiers to Duskendale, which a move that completely baffles Robb. He thinks to himself, Duskendale is on the narrow sea. Why would they go there? But he doesn't seem to know that it was Roose who sent them. He didn't think, why did Roose send them there?
Well, yeah. He didn't say it, but I think he knows it. I think he knows where that force came from, and it is a weird decision.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. And he's also put huge trust here in the Westerlings and the Spicers, who were enemies until the 2 kids got themselves hitched. And, I hope... He's got to hope that is a legit loyalty, because he's put a lot of stock in that.
Yeah, I mean, that for me, that's a shadow over him forever. Well, not forevermore, but certainly for a little while. Can we truly trust the Westerlings to be on his side? They are bannermen of the Lannisters, and now here they are, right up against Robb Stark. If they were to try and gain favor with, if their goal was to gain favor with Tywin Lannister, well, they're in a great position to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But ultimately, I do agree that Robb has been a fair, just king who's carried himself with honor and bravery.
Yeah, that's never going to work. So one thing so they decided they were going to exchange Martin Lannister, the remaining son of Kevan Lannister, so nephew to Tywin.
Well, he's still got Lancel. It's the remaining twin.
I keep hoping Lancel's died, but he's still hanging on. Sorry.
So does you and Cersei both.
I'm just passively hoping she might do something about it.
She's much more actively hoping.
But it just feels like, so they're going to exchange him for Robert Glover. It just feels a bit small potatoes. I mean, if you remember the last Tyrion chapter, Kevan Lannister is basically withdrawn from advising Tywin to grieve over his lost sons. He's got 1 dead son, 1 captive son, and 1 injured son. Freeing this one up might actually bring Kevan back to the table and really help the Lannisters.
Oh, yes. That is
They
true.
don't know that, of
possible.
course.
Right.
And they're trying to do a sort of noble gesture, but it just feels like you're still missing Arya Stark, Where's she?
Right. If you think that they have both daughters, then you would think, we'll give you Martin Lannister back for Arya. If Sansa's been married,
Right.
If we're not going to get Sansa, we'll take Arya.
Yeah.
We'll take one of the 2 at least. But yeah, it's definitely a bit of a win for the Lannister side. But I guess to keep Galbart Glover happy, he felt compelled to do so. I mean, loyal bannermen are in short supply right now for Robb.
Don't you think that just about every bannerman has got somebody missing that they would want to get back?
Yes,
it's a tricky thing.
You're probably right. Yeah, and keeping Martin does help keep Sansa and possibly Arya. They think that she might still be there, safe-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah. But maybe I was thinking maybe they could marry Martin off to someone like the Lannister did with Sansa. Maybe a Northern Bannerman's daughter or something like that.
A Frey.
Right. There's plenty of those to go around.
Yeah.
Oh, and one thing that Robb mentions is that he regrets not offering the Sansa Loras Tyrell betrothal ahead of time to beat the Lannisters to the punch of getting the Tyrell alliance. And of course, he says to his mom, I should have done it when you suggested it, which was way back in Cat 1 of A Clash of Kings, after Robb told Cleos his demands. In private, Cat told him, well, you should be bartering for the girls back. You should be offering Willem and Martin,
right,
Lannister for the girls back. He couldn't have at the time offered the betrothal because he needed to get Sansa back first. She was a captive of the Lannisters. So had that exchange worked, then he could have started that process. But remember, Loras was not a member of the Kingsguard until after the Battle of Blackwater. So it wasn't until the Lannister-Tyrell alliance actually took form that Loras became unavailable. So,
right.
And Sansa surely would have been thrilled about that option.
Right, so. Quite, yes, exactly. So Cat admits when she and Robb fall out a little bit because she admits that she freed Jaime for her daughters, which we all knew, but then she says, but if peace had been a byproduct of that, that would have been okay. It's an interesting thought, but I would say that given that Robb is just about the only person who's defending Catelyn's actions, you might want to keep that from him because it's going to push his buttons. It's bad enough he's having to defend you for doing she was a grieving mother, she acted hastily, but then you say, well, actually, I was calculating and I was hoping I'd get peace out of this. It's like, dude, would you stop? You're killing me.
Keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
Yes,
but overall,
that's true.
Overall, she is raising the idea that if he bends the knee, that Lannisters might let them go. They don't need the North. That was her point. They have no interest in the North, really. Yeah. I think we've talked about this before. Long term, it's an intolerable situation. But in the short term, if you bend the knee, they'll let you go home.
Right. They're in a tough spot at the moment. They can't go home because they physically can't get home right now. And they don't have the resources to fight the Lannister-Tyrell alliance because the Tyrells have joined the Lannister side, and that makes their force much larger than what what Robb has access to, especially since he just lost 1/3 of his foot soldiers.
Right.
So, bending the knee would remove one of the issues, but it still doesn't get him past Moat Cailin.
And that's the real problem. I mean, I think if there was a route home, it would be very much worth considering. But it just doesn't get them past that obstacle of you can't go home. You can't go west and take the sea because that's into the Westerlands where the Lannisters are. You can't go north because of Moat Cailin is blocked to you. And you can't go east because you can't get through the Mountains of the Moon.
Yeah, and even the east south of the Vale is Duskendale.
Which maybe that's what Roose was trying to do. Roose was trying to get away home. Yeah.
He was. He's trying to forge a path home. It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
It's certainly a tough sell to bend the knee to Joffrey.
Of course.
They killed Ned and naming him a traitor and, losing, possibly killing Arya. They don't really know what's going on with Arya and then marrying off Sansa. So
yeah. But I still think Lysa Arryn has a lot to answer for because she's causing a lot of this. She would just open those doors to her own family, to her own flesh and blood.
Yes.
All of this could go away.
Yep.
So at dinner, they learn of the sack of Winterfell. And again, Lothar Frey is a model of courtesy as he passes this bad news to them. And he's obviously genuinely upset by how much he's upsetting them with this news.
Yeah, either that or he's a pretty good actor.
Right.
Because he sells it well. And he thanks Robb for the quick justice done to Rickard Karstark for the murder of the boys. And, that's...
Of course, because one of those boys was a Frey.
Yes. Tion Frey was also murdered. So he's the son of Jenna Lannister and Emmon Frey. So that's why he's thanking him for the quick justice.
Yeah. But the news that Lothar brings from the north is kind of confusing. I mean, but there's certainly some very sad news in there. Roderick Cassell, apparently confirmed killed, but the two Walders, they survived somehow. But they survived because the bastard of the Bolton bastard saved them. But the Riverlands believed he was dead, believed he was killed.
Yes, he was killed by Sir Roderick after doing terrible things to poor Lady Donella Hornwood.
That's right, yeah.
Cat mentions... Oh, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, just one other thing, actually, is the news that Winterfell has been destroyed as well. It's just got to be a dagger through the heart. You know, you left home and it got burned behind you. That's not good, you know.
Your ancestral home was burned on your watch. That's tough. But Cat thinks about... She had forgotten all about the Walders, and she refers to them as my wards.
My wards.
And I thought... I'd have been pretty embarrassed to call the Walders my wards because she was never at Winterfell with them. She might as well called them Lewin's wards.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
She was responsible for them and never even went to check on them, you know?
Yeah.
But I found it a little bit surprising that they hadn't heard about the sack of Winterfell because we had heard about it so long ago in King's Landing.
Right.
Of course,
but
the twist...
Sansa's wedding is like...
Right. They got that news right away. I feel like Roose needs a one-on-one with King Robb here because Robb is like, wait a second. You're telling me the Bolton bastard is the one that saved my people? I was just told the Bolton bastard was killed because he was a terrible person and he did terrible things. And why was my force in Duskendale? You know, like we need Roose Bolton needs to come to River Run for a discussion, I feel like.
Yeah. Okay, so Kat thinks about some of the small folk of Winterfell. She thinks of Beth, Maester Lewin, Chael, Micken, Farlan, Palla, Nan, and Hodor. Mackelly, I'm relying on you now. Where are they all?
Well, Beth Cassell's whereabouts are unknown.
But remember, she was captive, right? Wasn't she of the Greyjoys?
Yes, they used her as a pawn.
The Iron Men had her. Yeah,
to pause Sir Roderick before his siege at Winterfell. Just hold him up long enough from storming the walls to allow the Boltons to overcome them. Which, of course, Theon didn't know was going to happen.
Right.
But he put a noose around Beth's neck and put her at the on the battlements and told Roderick, "You come attack me, she's gonna die."
Right, but we didn't see what happened to her, so she could be okay. Right.
She could be. We don't know.
Now, Maester Lewin, I know what happened to Maester Lewin. He died. He did. He told Osha to split up the kids and asked her for mercy.
Right.
Which was put him out of his misery because he was bleeding to death.
Yes,
yeah.
Both requests were honored.
Yes,
they did split up the Stark boys, and she did put him out of his misery. Septon Shale, he also died. He was thrown into a well to honor the drowned god after the Ironborn took Winterfell. And you remember, Jojen had one of his green dreams was about Septon Shale drowning, and Shale was like, I grew up on the banks of the what's it called, the White Knife? That's what the river up there is called. Well, the river, I think it's called the White Knife, but he said, I'm a good swimmer, I'm not worried about drowning.
So, and the other person that Jojen dreamed about was Micken, who was the armorer, the blacksmith.
Yes.
He was killed on Theon's first day in control, if you remember, for being disruptive. I remember that one.
Right. And he was also in Jojen's green dream. And then Farlan, he's the kennel master. He was blamed for killing men that was secretly killed by Reek because they knew about the Brandon Rickon and the Miller's sons switcheroo of the bodies. And Theon executed him as punishment for killing those Ironborn that Reek actually killed to further hide the evidence.
Palla, you'll have to help me. You have to remind me.
Palla was Farland's daughter.
Right.
And she was used as a token for bargaining between Theon and Reek, who turned out to be Ramsay Snow. Remember, if Reek did what he told Theon he would do, he would get Palla as his reward.
Yeah.
And she was at Winterfell for the sack by the Boltons, but that's all we know. We don't know what happened.
And Nan also was at the sack. Bran did not see her body, and she wasn't part of Jojen's dreams, so, maybe Nan's off telling stories somewhere.
We can hope.
And Hodor, of course, is with Bran.
Right. And, one thing about this story, that we know what happened. We know that it was the Boltons that sacked Winterfell, not Theon burning it when he realized his treasure was lost, or however it was worded. But can Ramsay leave any of the Winterfell small folk alive? Because when they're finally returned to wherever, the Starks, or however it plays out, they could just possibly set the record straight if they wanted to.
Well, that is true. And then the other part of that is the letter that told the Freys all this news came from the Walders, who are at the Dreadfort now. Is it possible that they're writing this news under duress? I mean, so that this news is very much in Bolton favour.
And speaking of the letter from the Walders, remember what Ramsay said when the sack began, when the Bolton forces finally got inside Winterfell. He said,
I don't.
Save me the Freys, kill the rest.
Right.
So, and we had discussed the fact that his father, Roos's new wife, is a Frey.
That's true.
Maybe there was something there.
An alliance forming between those two. As kind of like, they're two houses of similar stature, secondary houses, but with power. Interesting.
Yes.
So the whole of this chapter leaves me with this sort of like disconcerting feeling that the Freys are plotting something. Dragging Robb to the twins to apologise, it seems kind of peevish, but is it scheming? The insisting on urgency as well. I mean, their argument is that the long engagements that they set up backfired on the Freys. They want these engagements to be short. That is a legitimate argument.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But the whole thing just worries me.
Yeah, it seems like an awfully simple request from Walder for how outraged his family was, stomping on the Stark banner on the way out of Riverrun and all the things said about Robb and the Starks, and now all he wants is a simple apology. Yeah. But maybe cooler heads prevailed, and Walder realized aligning with the Starks and the Tullys just was naturally what he needs to do. And like you said, the urgency of the marriage, maybe Robb's behavior soured Walder on waiting,
Right.
So,
yeah.
Unfortunately, Edmure called Helman Tallheart out of the twins to help with the war effort, so there's no eyes or ears on the ground in the twins. Oh, and I think I came across possibly a mistake in this chapter, because...
Isn't that pedantry?
Well, I think it's an editing mistake. But I can save it for pedantry.
Save it for pedantry.
Okay, I'll save it.
Give me background instead.
All right. Well, Torrhen Stark gets a reference from Cat when citing examples of kings who knelt in order to save themselves and their people. And we've certainly talked about Torrhen over the years. Most recently, the chapter at the Inn of the Kneeling Man, which is located on the site where he is thought to have bent said knee. But it's time we give the king who knelt a full rundown. Torrhen was the last Stark king in the north until nearly 300 years later when Robb took up the mantle. So here's how the story goes for the king turned lord. When the Riverlands and Storm's End had fallen to Aegon the Conqueror, Torrhen rallied the Northmen. Meantime, after the Field of Fire, Aegon the Conqueror, who was at Highgarden at the time, learned that Torrhen had made it to the Riverlands with about 30,000 strong at his back. Aegon, who had planned to head south at the time, changed plans and started north. By the time Torrhen reached the Trident, Aegon awaited him with his sister wives and their 3 dragons, along with about 45,000 men. So now Thorin
Seems like that was a little bit of overkill there, the 45,000 men.
The 3 dragons probably might have been enough. But...
Exactly.
So now Thorin had a decision. His scouts reported what they saw of the ruined Harrenhal, and the king had heard reports of Aegon's might at the Field of Fire. Despite that info, some of his northern lords pressed him to attack, while others wanted him to fall back to Mackelly and make his stand there. I mentioned before that Thorin's bastard half-brother Brandon Snow offered to sneak across the river at night and kill the 3 dragons. Good luck with that. I'm sure that will go swimmingly. However, ultimately realizing the futility of fighting Aegon's force, Thorin sent his brother Brandon to treat with Aegon instead. The next morning, the northern king knelt and laid his crown at the feet of Aegon. Having done so, Aegon named Thorin Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North. Not a bad consolation, in my opinion.
No.
Not all Northerners were happy about Thorin's decision, though. One such faction of Northern men and women formed a sellsword group known as the Company of the Rose, and rather than recognize Aegon as their king, they chose exile in Essos. Thorin's sons didn't agree with the Targaryen rule, and some spoke of rebelling and raising the Stark banner themselves. However, no rebellions by House Stark are known to have occurred, at least to my knowledge, until now. And as Bran pointed out, Thorin is entombed in the crypts of Winterfell.
Well, thank you.
You were quite well.
That was Catelyn Stark.
It was.
So, in comparison with the television show, a lot of this is captured, but it's kind of like piecemeal in various places. Edmure does miss Hoster's funeral pyre several times, and Brynden does bail him out. I don't believe that the Freys visit I think that's all done by Raven. So Robb and Catelyn and Edmure discuss how they're going to get the Freys back on side, and they think it should be Edmure marrying a Frey. And I think basically by Raven they're called back to the twins to apologise and for Edmure to marry.
Okay.
He's mad about it, but there's nobody in the room to get offended by it. So
Ravens are cheaper for casting.
That's true. Yeah, I could be wrong about this because I got to say all of this stuff was quite scattered through various episodes. So
Okay.
I might have missed a conversation that happened, but I believe it was all done by Raven. But otherwise, I mean, yeah, narratively, the story-wise, this is definitely captured for real. So I believe you have some pedantry that you just thought of.
Well, I thought of it while I was reading the chapter. It's something Walder Rivers says at the dinner where his brother Lothar mentions, 1, about the sack of Winterfell, and 2, that the Freys will agree to the betrothal of Edmure to Roslin Frey. And Walder says, referring to Lord Walder Frey, he says, "My grandfather has come to dislike long betrothals.
Oh.
I can't imagine why."
It's his father.
It's his father.
Huh. You're right.
So,
That's a mistake. Well spotted.
I think so. Yeah.
Mackelly, if that isn't pedantry, what is?
Well, it's just a editing mistake. Simon looks baffled by my
reticence to call pedantry what it is.
Yes.
Oh, that's a great one, actually. Yeah, I remember reading it and it didn't register.
It didn't register with me the first time through either.
So news and notes.
Well, so I have to make an apology. I misspoke last week, and I was called out about it today. So people have noticed.
You're throwing shade at George Martin a minute ago. He's coming home to roost straight away.
I guess so. So last week, which was Arya 6 of A Storm of Swords, during background, I said that House Charlton fought on the side of Aegon II in the battle against his uncle Maegor. I meant to say Prince Aegon, who is the son of Aenys. In my mind, he was the second Aegon that was born.
Right.
He
but
just
was
never
not.
became king, so he wasn't Aegon II. So that's why Aegon II came out of my mouth when I meant to say Prince Aegon. Anyway, so I'd like to say that I was just misunderstood, much like Maegor, but alas, I did misspeak, so my apologies.
Okay. So, like Mad King Aerys, the House of the Dragon has been pulled from its throne, at HBO, that is. The new king of HBO appears to be The Last of Us. In the first 7-day period from the Monday to Sunday, which allowed for a full week of the first episode and a few hours of the second, House of the Dragon was streamed 731 million minutes. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Good God. In the same period, so that's House of the Dragon. In the same period, The Last of Us was streamed for 837 million minutes. That said, they both have a steep hill to climb to reach the true dominance. The week The Last of Us hit 837 million minutes, it finished 6th in streaming minutes. The top 4 were all Netflix. 3 of the 4 were over 1 billion minutes, led by Ginny and Georgia, with 1.8 billion minutes. I've never even heard of that thing. What is that?
I think Stacey watches it, or at least did watch the first season.
God, those numbers are extraordinary.
That is something. We need to reach those numbers on our show.
This episode's getting close to 1.8 billion minutes.
That's prior to editing.
Yeah.
And also, finally, just keep up the great job rating and reviewing us, especially on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really does mean so much to us, and it helps out so much more than you can imagine. Just you swiping across to 5 stars or leaving a few nice words. It really it does so much for us. So thank you and keep it up.
Thank you. So let's conclude. Hoster Tully is dead. Long live Lord Edmure and his soon-to-be wife Roslin.
Yes.
I look forward to the nuptials.
I feel like Hoster was on his deathbed about as long as Arya roamed the Riverlands.
Oh, right. Okay.
The two are probably pretty even. About 2.5 books.
But wasn't he failing like way even longer than that? I mean, like before
Game of Thrones. Yeah. In Game of Thrones.
Oh, I guess. When did Cat take Tyrion? Because I think, wasn't Cat at that time there was news that Hoster was failing, I thought.
Yes, when she was at the Eyrie, she was worried that something must be wrong with her father because Edmure was sending correspondences, not Hoster.
Right.
So it's been even longer, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Robb is off to eat some crow or some pie at Walder Frey's table. That will be, you'll need some seasoning because that's going to be bitter in the mouth. But again, he brought it on himself. No one but himself to blame. So
he did. You made a solid observation earlier when you said the Freys to this point really haven't done anything wrong. It was the Starks, primarily Robb, that are to blame for the things going south between the two families. So yeah, hopefully they can get things back on track. Goodness knows Robb needs some good news. Yes, he's had an awful long of bad news lately.
Yeah, and hopefully he's going to find a way home to rid the North of the double scourge of the Ironborn and Ramsay Snow.
Yes, we can only hope. And, like you said, Edmure's getting married, and it's to someone who's been chosen for him. And you assume she's been chosen by her father, Lord Walder. So it begs the question, should we expect that Walder chose the least appealing of the daughters as more revenge? Or is he seeing the long game and offering the best prospect since she will be the wife of his liege lord?
Yeah, you see, I'm sure he's thought of both of those two things.
Right.
But the thing is, once you've packed her off, if she's terribly unattractive and unappealing and not very nice at all and has very poor childbearing hips, then
That's important.
Edmure can probably get rid of her somehow and then marry whoever he wants. You know what I mean?
Right.
Making
right.
her giving Edmure the best catch is probably the best way to keep sweet, you know, and have Frey blood on the River Run throne.
Right. And that ultimately is Walder's goal. You know, that's what he wants. So you're right. We'll see, I guess.
Who do we see next time?
Next week, we are going to go visit Davos on Dragonstone.
In the cells?
Last we saw him, he was in the cells.
Gonna be fun, I'm sure.
Him and his cellmate, Alistair Florent.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Yeah, we'll see what they're up to.
So, there are 3 ways that you can help us. You could leave us a positive review. That helps spread the word. You can buy merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com, or you could buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal, where you can become a sustainer at the Lord Paramount or Knight of the Realm level. We'd appreciate it if you did.
We certainly do. And as always, you could reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. And you can also go out and follow us on Twitter at @ghostharrenhal, or on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.